"Excuse me, are you the help?" The CEO's wife looked me up and down like I was something unpleasant she'd found on her designer shoe. The servers should use the side entrance. 3 executives standing nearby snickered into their champagne flutes while my 14-year-old daughter Zoe, who I'd brought to see what a professional event looked like, watched with widening eyes. What none of them knew, what not even the CEO himself fully understood, was that I was the founding partner who owned 62% of the company and had personally selected him for his position. The annual gala for Ashford Technologies was held at the Ritz-Carlton, a tradition I'd started 12 years ago when the company was just an idea scribbled on napkins in my studio apartment. Now it was a $340 million enterprise with offices in 6 countries. 700 employees depended on us for their livelihoods. And the wife of the man I'd trusted to run it had just mistaken me for catering staff. I was wearing a simple black dress, elegant but understated, because I'd never been comfortable with ostentation. My hair was pulled back. My only jewelry was my mother's pearl earrings. I looked, I suppose, like someone who worked for a living. Which of course I did. "I'm not with the catering company," I said calmly. The woman, Diane Ashworth, wife of CEO Gregory Ashworth, raised a perfectly microbladed eyebrow. "Then who are you?" "This is an executive event. Invitation only." "I'm aware." I designed the invitation list. Confusion flickered across her face. Before she could respond, Gregory appeared at her side, champagne in hand, already mid-laugh from whatever conversation he'd left. "Diane, darling, I see you've met," he stopped. His face went pale. "Ms. Monroe, I didn't realize you were attending this year." "I almost didn't. But I wanted to show my daughter what our annual celebration looks like." I gestured to Zoe, who was standing slightly behind me, her cheeks flushed with anger on my behalf. Gregory's eyes darted between me and his wife. Diane's expression shifted from condescension to uncertainty. "Your daughter," she repeated. "I'm sorry, I don't think we've been introduced. I'm Diane Ashworth." "I know who you are." An awkward silence stretched between us. The executives who'd snickered were now studying their drinks with intense concentration. "I was just telling your wife that I'm not with the catering company," I continued, though I can see how the confusion arose. Simple black dress. No diamonds. I must look terribly out of place among all this. I gestured at the glittering crowd. "Success." Gregory laughed nervously. "Ms. Monroe has an unusual sense of humor." "She's actually leaving," I interrupted. "Zoe has school tomorrow, and I think we've seen enough." I put my arm around my daughter and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard Gregory's sharp whisper. "Do you have any idea who that was?" I didn't hear Diane's response. I didn't need to. The next morning, I was in my home office by 6 a.m. The space was modest, a converted spare bedroom with a second-hand desk and a view of my small backyard. Nothing about it suggested the wealth it had generated. I'd started Ashford Technologies in 2012 with $50,000 I'd saved from 10 years of working as a software engineer. The name wasn't mine. I'd chosen it from a random generator because I wanted the company to stand on its own merits, not my personal brand. For the first 3 years, I'd been everything. CEO, CFO, lead developer, customer service janitor. When we'd needed to scale, I'd brought in investors. I'd retained majority ownership, but stepped back from daily operations. I was better at building systems than managing people, and I knew my limitations. 5 years ago, I'd hired Gregory Ashworth as CEO. He had the polish I lacked, the MBA from Wharton, the executive presence, the ability to schmooze clients and charm investors. On paper, he was perfect. In practice, he developed a troubling pattern. The culture was shifting. Complaints about toxic behavior had increased. Women were leaving the company at twice the rate of men. And Gregory seemed more interested in gala appearances than operational excellence. I'd been planning to address this for months. Last night had accelerated my timeline. At 7 a.m., I sent an email to Gregory and the entire executive team. Emergency board meeting. 10 a.m. Full attendance required. Topic: company culture and leadership evaluation. E. Monroe, founding partner. My phone rang within minutes. Gregory. Eleanor, about last night. Ms. Monroe. And we'll discuss everything at 10 a.m. Diane didn't know who you were. It was an honest mistake. Was it? She looked at me and saw someone who didn't belong. That tells me something about the culture we've created. She's not an employee. She's my wife. Her opinions aren't the company's responsibility. Her opinions reflect what she hears at home, what she sees modeled. what she believes is acceptable. I paused. I'll see you at 10. I hung up before he could respond. Zoe found me in the kitchen, making coffee. Are you okay, Mom? I'm fine, sweetheart. That lady was really mean. She looked at us like we were garbage. Some people judge others by how they look instead of who they are. It says more about them than about us. But you own the company. You could have told her. I could have. But I wanted to see how she treated someone she thought was less than her. That's the real test of character. Did she fail? Spectacularly. Zoe smiled. Are you going to fire her husband? That depends on the conversation we have today. The board meeting was held in the executive conference room at Ashford's downtown headquarters. The mahogany table could seat 20. Today, only 8 chairs were filled. Myself, Gregory, the 5 other board members, and Sandra Wells, our head of HR. Gregory sat at the head of the table, a position he'd claimed years ago without anyone's permission. I took a seat at the opposite end. Thank you all for coming on short notice, I began. We need to discuss the company's direction, particularly regarding workplace culture. Is this about last night? Gregory interrupted. Because I've already spoken with Diane. She feels terrible about the misunderstanding. It's about more than last night. Sandra, can you share the retention data? Sandra opened her laptop with the expression of someone who'd been waiting for this moment. Over the past 3 years, female employee turnover has increased by 47%. Exit interviews cite hostile environment, lack of advancement opportunity, and dismissive leadership as primary factors. Those are subjective complaints, Gregory said. People leave for all sorts of reasons. 63% of departing female employees specifically mentioned interactions with senior leadership as contributing to their decision. Gregory's jaw tightened. This feels like a witch hunt. It feels like data, I said. Sandra, continue. We've had 14 formal complaints about inappropriate comments in the past 18 months. 3 specifically mention executives. None resulted in meaningful action. We followed procedure, Gregory insisted. Every complaint was investigated. And every complaint was dismissed as misunderstanding or personality conflict. I opened my own folder. I've reviewed the investigation files. The pattern is clear. The other board members shifted uncomfortably. They'd been content to collect their fees and approve quarterly reports. Actual oversight wasn't part of their routine. I've been building this company for 12 years, I continued. I've stayed in the background because I believed operational expertise mattered more than my presence. But I've realized that absence has a cost. When leadership doesn't see consequences for dismissive behavior, the behavior becomes normalized. What exactly are you proposing? Asked Harold, the longest-serving board member. A comprehensive culture audit, conducted by an external firm. Mandatory training for all executives on inclusive leadership. And a restructuring of our complaint process to ensure independent investigation. That could take months, Gregory said. And cost a fortune. We generated $47 million in profit last year. We can afford to invest in our people. This is overreach, Eleanor. You're a silent partner. The board handles governance. I'm the majority owner. I founded this company. And I've been silent long enough. The room went quiet. There's something else, I said. Last night, your wife looked at me, the person who built everything you've benefited from, and assumed I was the help. When I said I wasn't catering staff, she demanded to know who I was. She couldn't imagine that someone who looked like me could belong at an executive event. That's not fair. Diane isn't. Diane is a reflection of what she's learned is acceptable. She's watched you dismiss women's contributions for 5 years. She's heard you joke about diversity hires and politically correct nonsense. She's absorbed the message that some people belong and others don't. Gregory's face reddened. You're basing company policy on one comment from my wife at a party? I'm basing company policy on 3 years of data, 14 formal complaints, a 47% increase in female turnover, and the look on my 14-year-old daughter's face when she watched your wife humiliate me. That landed. Several board members glanced at each other. Zoe asked me this morning if I was going to fire you, I continued. I told her it depends on this conversation. So let me ask you directly, Gregory. Are you willing to participate in meaningful culture change? To be held accountable for the environment you've created? To acknowledge that your leadership style has caused harm? He was silent for a long moment. And if I say no, then we discuss your severance package. The silence stretched. Finally, Gregory leaned back in his chair. What would this accountability look like? We talked for 3 more hours. By the end, we had a framework: external audit, executive coaching, revised complaint procedures, quarterly culture assessments reported directly to the board. Gregory would remain CEO on a probationary basis, with specific metrics he'd need to meet. He didn't like it, but he liked the alternative less. As the meeting ended and people filtered out, Sandra caught my arm. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I've been documenting these problems for 2 years. No one would listen. I should have listened sooner. You listen now. That matters." That evening, I took Zoe out for pizza, her choice after a difficult week. "Did you fire him?" she asked. "Not yet. He's going to try to do better. Do you think he will?" "I think people can change when there are consequences for not changing. We'll see." "That lady called you the help. Like being someone who serves food is bad. There's nothing wrong with honest work. Your grandmother was a housekeeper for 30 years. She raised me by herself, put me through college, taught me everything I know about integrity. So why did it hurt?" I considered the question. Because she wasn't insulting the job. She was deciding I was worth less than her based on how I looked. That kind of judgment, that's what hurts. You're worth more than all of them combined. I don't know about that. But I've worked hard to build something meaningful. And I'm not going to let anyone make me feel small for it. Even people in fancy dresses with mean faces? I laughed. Especially them. 6 months later, the culture audit was complete. The numbers were improving. Gregory was grudgingly implementing changes. Diane had, according to reliable sources, become significantly more careful about how she treated strangers at company events. At the next annual gala, I wore the same simple black dress. This time, Zoe wore a matching one, her idea. Diane Ashworth spotted us across the room. She hesitated, then approached. "Ms. Monroe, I owe you an apology." "You do?" "I'm sorry for how I spoke to you. It was inexcusable." "It was. I accept your apology." She looked relieved, then uncertain about what to say next. "This is my daughter, Zoe," I offered. "She's the reason I've been pushing for culture change. I want her to grow up in a world where women aren't dismissed based on their appearance." Diane looked at Zoe with something approaching genuine warmth. "That's a worthy goal." "We think so." She excused herself. Zoe watched her go. That was awkward. Growth usually is. "Do you think she means it?" "I think she means it right now. Whether it lasts depends on whether she does the work. Like her husband. Like everyone. Including me." Zoe squeezed my hand. "You're doing fine, Mom." I looked around the gala, the company I'd built, the people who worked there, the future we were creating together. "We both are, sweetheart. We both are." The help. That's what she'd called me. But help is what we give each other. Help is how companies grow and cultures change, and people become better than they were. I'd spent 12 years helping build something meaningful. And I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot.